Hey, man. How's
What's
it
up,
going?
dude? It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. All right. So this is an experimental format, which is to say we just talk. Whenever we hang out, we seem to have great conversations about all things context engineering. And so here we are. We're in December of 25. How are you thinking about context engineering? What are your latest thoughts?
So my favorite thing about context engineering, actually, I think I figured this out like a month or two ago, but like I had posted that thing in like April 3rd or something, right?
This is the 12-factor agents?
12-factor agent thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is like had an article on like one of the 12 factors was like about context engineering, which apparently that was the one that blew up. But like 2 weeks afterwards, you just posted the words context engineering with no context. And I'm like, oh, Jeff was thinking about the exact same thing at the exact same time as me. And so that was exciting. It's fun to have a secret co-creator of context engineering out there.
I don't remember if it was spontaneous evolution or if I just totally unintentionally loved and copied you, but I could do worse than love and copy you. So yeah.
One of the new words I'm seeing a lot is harness engineering.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
I've tweeted about that, unfortunately, as well.
I just tweeted about a guy. I was like, oh yeah, this guy said it first, and then I was like, oh no, that guy was actually reposting a post from another guy who I have literally talked to in the last 2 weeks, and I've like seen the article. I didn't actually read it, but. Yeah, attribution is hard, and I don't think anyone can really own a word for that long anyways.
And who cares, right? It's kind of cringe to be like the person who coined X as like your name, your claim to fame anyways. So I think we're aligned on that. New models are coming out every day in the past like 3 weeks. So many new powerful models have come out. Like, how have you updated your priors on like what it means to do context engineering with these like latest and greatest models?
Yeah, I mean, context engineering for me is like, how do you get the most out of today's models?
Yeah.
If I was going to put it like at the top, a lot of people say, oh, it's all about putting the right information into the model, but it's getting the right information in, but also like keeping it as small as possible, and the keeping it as small as possible and as dense as possible is like the thing that actually I think, like, not token dense, but like information per token density. So it's every time a new model comes out, we're playing with it, we're testing it, we're working in different workflows. I think a lot of what we are building on is built on kind of a paradigm that we're exploring a way past, because I think there's a new vision for it that is a little bit more flexible and like easier to take advantage of new models while they come out. Because today, a lot of what we are doing and what we're building, and something that works really, really well, is like use a really smart model as your like top level steering orchestrator, something like Opus 4.5 or Opus 4.1 forever. Opus 4.1 was the first thing that really like, oh, we can actually do really incredible things with this model. And then you would delegate out, like with your harness has subagents, which is one of the reasons we really like Claude Code, delegate out to a bunch of subagents that use faster, dumber models, right? We've seen this with Cognition and SweetGrep. We've seen this with Warp just and like release their grep agent. Was it Warp? No, Morph. Sorry,
Morph, but it's called Warp grep.
Yep. Okay, that's why. Okay,
it's a lot to keep track of.
But one thing we've been exploring, and it's actually how the AMP code team designed, like AMP's been this architecture for a while, where your like main orchestrator is actually a smart but not the smartest fast model. So they've been using Sonnet as the default for a really long time, as kind of the core one, and then they had this thing, you can delegate out to a smart model. They had like this Oracle concept, right? And so you put the reasoning and the really like beefy, slow thinking intelligence. Hey, I have 50 files I need you to read and like try to help me figure out where this race condition is or something like that.
Yes.
And that becomes something you delegate. And doing that really well is tricky because those big slow models are slow. And if you're just like, hey, read these 50 files, like I don't like sitting. We've experimented with this using like Sonnet as the driver and Opus as the like thinker. And the problem is like Opus is going to sit there and call tools and read every single file. And it's just slow because it's a big slow model. They had the same thing with when they had O3 as the Oracle. I'm sure it's GPT-5 High now or whatever it is. I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah.
But it's like, O3 is not great at tool calling and it's slow. And so like if you actually wanted to read, so there's like the context engineering nugget there is like, okay, well, if you can have the fast orchestrator model like figure out which files are relevant without having to like really understand every line of code. Yeah. You can put some deterministic layer in between that is just going to like stuff all those files into a big prompt, and you kind of like step away, or like you're de-emphasizing the agentic loop, and you're just like, here's a crap ton of context, tell me how it works, or answer whatever the question is, whether it's explain the architecture or things like that. So the answer is like, I think if we can, the more people can move to that architecture, and there's like a lot there, and there's a lot to eval, and there's a lot to like figure out what the right way of doing it, beyond just like the vibes of us and our customers using it internally and trying it for us.
This makes me think of another question, which is like, there's one school of thought, which is like one model is all you need. And maybe you're not even using sub-agents, right? You're kind of just using like one model, one agent loop, like, you know, multi-agent, maybe like too brittle. This was the opinion, at least, you know, a few months back for a certain group of people. Or like multi-modal was also like either just like too hard to reason about or too brittle. And then obviously now you also, I think, increasingly seeing kind of this view or idea that like, no, actually like sub-agents are really important for a lot of reasons, and like breaking out kind of agents into different roles and responsibilities, which then also begs the question, like, do you use like purpose-built models? You know, so like take for like search, for example, you mentioned these like fast, you know, search agents, these like, you know, models which are very good at using search tools and using them hopefully well. What are your thoughts? Like, you know, do we not, you know, is the bitter lesson coming for all of us in the end of time? Like, you know, how durable is this? Is it just the best practice for now, and like we should just all embrace it because it is the best practice for now to use like multi-agent, multi-model? Like, how do you think about this in your head?
Well, and you have orthogonal to the, like, I want to answer your question, but not to get to, you have orthogonal to like new models every week, but then you also have like ILIA, like scaling's not going to keep happening. Like, we actually like, we're getting near the plateau for the current set of technology, and we need to go back to research for a while. I don't know if I buy that either.
And the real bitter lesson is that S curves are, you know, come for us all in the end. So
yeah. Well, but it's almost like the inverse, right? It's like, okay, if things are topping out, then now is the time to be investing in how do we get the most out of today's models? Because 2 years ago, you could be like, look at all this code we wrote so that GPT 3.5 can actually like solve these problems. Exactly. And it's like GPT 4 comes out and you're like, oh yeah, we can throw all that out now.
It does feel now, if you think about like the landscape of boxes that like an agent harness needs to do a good job, it's like, okay, maybe there's like a file system, there's some level of like tools and tool use, tool search, has the ability to inclusive of that, like write and run code. It feels like the map of the boxes now is like, it's going to be the same in 10 years. I can't imagine a world in which like those boxes change dramatically or go away.
Right. It's like, as long as we're dealing with quadratic, like transformer attention, you're always going to benefit from doing the deterministic engineering that allows you to keep the context window as small as possible for a given task.
Yeah.
There was more to your question.
Let me ask it a different way. I've had this thought or thesis that like there's more than one class of inference workload. And what I mean by that is like people clearly understand like the beefy model, the beefy reasoner model.
Yeah.
Slow, hopefully methodical, very high reasoning power. I think oftentimes if I'm just using, you know, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of the models, I will often reach first for the high thinking model just because
you want to see if AI can do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like see if AI can do it. And it's almost like a script, you know, I'm not trying to like optimize it. I'm running it one time. And so like, well, if I have to wait an extra 20% longer or even like, you know, 400% longer, I don't really care because it's kind of just like a one-off task. Versus if I'm using it in a loop, and as a core part of my job, like programming, for example, then like I obviously care much more about like its like speed
right,
and
if
its
you're
cost.
Gonna run it 1,000 times in a day.
Exactly. And so like I guess like, you know, do you think of different like agents and sub-agents as like demanding or deserving in some sense their own inference workload? Or to ask this another question another way, like, you know, do you think that like there will be like dedicated models for search that will be will have staying power? Do you think that context compaction is like an interesting candidate for like dedicated model inference as well? Like, yeah, how do you kind of think about the map of like agents and sub-agents and like where it makes sense for like there to be like other models that are different than the high reasoning mododels?
I see. And this is in the context of the like, what about the people who just say use one model for everything?
Exactly.
It's good enough. And like, you waste more time min-maxing across all of them and developing intuition for all of them than if you like, I tell this to a lot of people, it's like, well, I use Claude Code for this and I use Codex for this and sometimes I use Cursor and then sometimes I'll shell out to deep research, and it's like,
Yeah.
you're only going to get to like 80% of the possible, like the level of intuition that you could have with if you're constantly switching. Whereas like if you sit and talk to one model all day for like 2 months, you will develop a level of intuition that's actually that's where I think the people who are the best, especially in the programming, like using like, what do we call it, agentic engineering, because I'm not saying vibe coding anymore. But like, yeah, the agentic engineering world, the people who are really good at this, like, have a really good intuition of the models and their context windows and like when to yell at them versus when to be supportive and all these like things that like are kind of feel a little bit like superstitious.
Yeah.
But these people get results that I haven't seen anyone else be able to get. And so my advice is always like, you will get better results if you pick one model, one tool, and work with it a lot for a month or two, versus the like incremental gains you might get by like, I mean, unless you have like a huge eval set that's really, really baked, which almost none of us do.
Yeah.
The incremental gains of like, oh, let me try the new DeepSeek. Okay, let me try the new Opus, and using a different model for 3 weeks every time.
Yeah.
I think there's more upside in just getting to know one model or one family of models really, really well.
That's interesting. Like, I guess that implies that like the models are not, at least at this point, like highly swappable. You know, you as a carpenter, if you will, a master carpenter, right? Like anybody can pick up a saw and go saw some wood. But like you as a master carpenter really learn the characteristics of this saw for like this grain of wood. You go through like your 10,000 hours and like, you know, maybe swapping saws out or swapping grains of wood or types of wood. You do lose something.
There's this thing when Codex CLI came out, and especially the Codex model, I think I saw Swix posting about this one too, is like, oh, if you yell at Codex the way you're used to yelling at Claude, you completely detune the model and you actually like screw up the performance a lot. Like all the all caps and like important and you must always is helpful and gets like good results from Opus and things like this. But and Opus actually getting much better at instruction following as well. But you go use the same prompts with a different model. Like we've taken our prompts that are optimized for Claude and Opus, and I've always said like, oh, our prompts are optimized for Opus, and like we basically only use Sonnet for like searching and finding things versus like actually understanding how stuff works and like generating like summaries and documents. And I think when I say that, it's really like, okay, cool. Like I know that if I have a 6-step workflow, I can rely on Opus to actually go through all those steps. And if I give that to Sonnet, it's going to get halfway through step 3 and it's going to forget that there was a step 4, 5, and 6. And I have to like remind it. And you can change your workflow around that. But again, it's like, cool, I know this works for this world. And if I'm constantly trying to switch, like I think Opus can do this, I think Sonnet can do this. Now I need 2 sets of prompts. And every time the models change, I need to update both of them. And it's like a whole thing.
We were texting last week about the idea of like using AI more deeply and kind of just our like day-to-day work and productivity, and specifically you're talking about like managing to-do lists. Like what is your current like personal to-do list setup, and like do you use Cloud Code or like if it's just a piece of paper and not AI related, that's also okay. But I was curious to sort of hear how you're thinking about or how you're using AI and like kind of your to-do list management.
I mean, everything's super chaotic right now, of course. I think since bringing on a co-founder a couple months ago, it has definitely changed because we need to be like, when it's just you kind of steering the ship and people on the team, you need to keep on the same page, but it's like, it was enough for me to just have a pile of markdown files that I occasionally like sync to GitHub, and like that was my system. And I used do you know the Getting Things Done, the like Robert Allen thing?
GTD.
GTD. So I was like, okay, cool, like deep research, go make me a long summary of the GTD method, and then drop that in a markdown file for Claude, and just be like, go implement this system. And then it like kind of built a whole set of stuff. And I know lots of people have done this.
No, this is interesting though.
It actually ended up being really heavyweight, and like when we needed to collaborate more, we consolidated on like more of the like YC inspired, like, okay, what's the goal for the month? What's the goal for the week? What's the goal for today? Check in at the beginning of every day and at the end of every day, like who did their thing, what's behind, what do we need to do, and like constantly reorienting around like what's the most important thing. And that just happens to work better in a Google Doc than in a markdown file.
But there's no AI in that Google Doc. It's just you guys as humans typing.
It's just us as humans typing.
Do you think it should be like AIs like with you typing, or would that
I would
be better?
love that. Well, so this is also like a thing that we're hoping to. This is like not out yet, and probably not before the end of the year. But like collaborative markdown editing, isn't Like there's just like, I haven't seen a good tool. Like VS Code Live Share is pretty good. But it's missing all the AI stuff. And like a collaborative workspace where two people can have multiple cursors on a document and also have multiple cursors like in a prompt box and like back and forth with AI in a way that both people can see it and collaborate on this stuff. I think that's a really interesting, like, people talk about like, oh, chat is a bad UX for AI. We barely scratched the surface. And also the web is like the pre-AI UX. What's the new UX? And I think it's like the way that humans interact with AI and each other and can maintain visibility about what's going on is going to be a really important and like very technical, like Linear's entire company based on like, hey, we built Jira, but with a sync engine. And obviously they're way more than that, right? They've done a lot in terms of design and things like that. But at the core of it, it's like, it's a snappier, better UI. It's better for collaboration. It feels real time. Yeah, and that's the biggest unlock for me.
Yeah. I think earlier this year, we'll be okay referencing your own tweets or Zeets in this room. It's a safe place to do that. I tweeted something which is like, most operating systems are built for single mode, not for multiplayer, and like for AI, they need to be like multiplayer. And what I meant by that is like people quickly on Twitter were like, you're wrong. There are daemons. What are you talking about? And like, okay, fine, but like, you're not using my computer at the same time I'm using my computer, and this question of like file. Like diffs and merging comes into play again. Like if we both have the same markdown file, we both change the same line. Do all markdown files need to be now like C or DT native in a way that like the agents and the humans can all be editing at the same time? Like, like you have thoughts. You have to give away anything if you have secret thoughts about this.
Yes,
but
they will.
About this. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I figured that answer.
I mean, they won't have to be, but I think you unlock a lot if you can solve that.
That makes me think a lot about like AI UX. It feels like in some ways AI UX is incredibly primitive still, and it goes like kind of both in some ways. Well, there's two sides of this. One is like AI UX is like actually really great, and like chat is way better than people thought it was, and it's sort of wrong to like dunk on chat and like make fun of chat, because actually like chat and or kind of like the Claude Code style chat is actually very powerful, and you can do so much with it. And so like maybe it's wrong to dunk on that. And the same way it feels like we are in the caveman days of like, again, collaborating with agents and other humans all in a shared workspace. And so like, do you have thoughts around like, one potential pattern which has emerged is this like inbox pattern where like the agent is like kind of teeing up decisions for you, a human, to make, and presumably it needs to give you all the context at the same time, context engineering for humans, if you will, so that you, a human, can make a good decision. But I guess like, tell me more about like AI UX. Like what are you using? What do you want to exist? Like what do you think is going to exist around AI UX that doesn't exist yet?
Well, and so the chat thing and the inbox thing is really interesting because I spent 9+ months obsessing with this problem, and like I really, when we were working on the kind of core human layer, which we're kind of like sunsetting now, is like that was a really powerful, like I thought that was the most important thing that was going to happen in AI. It was like people dunk on chat, and I actually like didn't like chat either, because it was like, who wants to have 7 browser tabs open for every single different agent that they have purchased and they have access to, right? It's like, I want to talk. The whole point of chat is like, oh, you interact with this the same way you interact with other people. Like you text your friends, you type to the agent, same experience, it works. The issue was that like you couldn't actually, they weren't in Slack, they weren't in your email inbox. Like the workflow that I thought was my favorite was like, I had a bunch of emails and I've built something where it's like you can just forward this email to an agent and it will like, it has a bunch of tools, but the tools are wired with like an email based human in the loop. So you delegate a bunch of stuff out. Next time you come to your inbox, you have some inbound. It's like, cool, here's the like tool call I'm going to make. Like your permission. It was a lot of like, we were using Linear as our CRM at the time.
Okay.
So I was like, every inbound email, I would just forward it and like add this to the CRM, and it would either make a new contact or add a comment to existing contact. And all this. And so it's like, come back and like, here's the comment I'm going to add. And then I could reply, be like, no, do it this way or whatever it is. And eventually when it was good, it would go actually update the CRM. And that's what I do. I don't use that agent as much anymore because we've moved our CRM into Markdown and Airtable, and it's like managed by Claude, and it's a whole, it's not ready yet. It's not done yet.
I have so many questions about that, but maybe keep going.
We can get it. But that was that was my favorite AI UX ever, is like talk to AI the way you talk to your human coworkers. And I think the same thing is like some of the best collaboration experiences I've had are like collaborative whiteboarding, like everybody writing in a Google Doc. Physical whiteboarding is going to be hard for AI, but maybe eventually.
Yeah.
But like I worked for like 7 years at a company called replicated.com. They did like Kubernetes infrastructure for like deploying your SaaS into like enterprise environments. And hired a bunch of like ex-GitLab people, which I don't know if you know. GitLab has like one of the most intense remote cultures.
Yeah,
like,
there's a whole like GitLab Unleashed YouTube channel where you can just like watch all their meetings, and
Yeah.
it's like, who are all these people? This is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the being like fully open and transparent was like one dimension of it, but it was like there's things, it was like, okay, every meeting needs to have an agenda. If it doesn't have an agenda, it gets automatically deleted. And like every meeting needs to be recorded, and if you're in a meeting and you're not participating, like you will be actively encouraged to leave. Because your goal is like, if you just want to be in a meeting to feel included, just watch the recording. And meetings are only for decision making. They're not for getting in sync. And there's all this stuff like never answer someone's question. Someone asks a question, never answer it. You have to respond with an answer, like a link to the handbook page. And if the handbook page doesn't exist, you have to write it and then send the link. And if the handbook page exists and then but it's wrong, like this forces people to constantly go and review the documentation. Like if it's the only source of truth. If like Slack is not a knowledge. Anyway, there's all these like very strong rules, and like everything's in a Google Doc, and everyone's like collaboratively taking notes in every single meeting. I'm like, this works really well. How is this going to work with AI?
Well, I think it's going to work a lot better with AI, number one, because you don't have to have humans be quite so much like robots. I mean, it's kind of my critique of, you know, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, obviously, yes, GitLab continues to be successful as a company as far as companies go, but like, there's a lot of stuff they've like missed pretty significantly, and like, you have to wonder, like, you know, is making product engineering a lot like a factory and its like specification process actually like removing some of the more like when are the water cooler conversations happening about like, what if we did this, you know, like where is the safe place to like bring up like a crazy idea and like let it be a crazy idea for a while, if every meeting has to have a agenda and a decision, and you know, like only people who are supposed to be there, right? Like, are you actually like clamping down on a lot of the potential like creativity and upside of like what could be?
Yeah, and this was the thing. This is also part of why like we did Human Layer like super all in on in person. It's just like I don't want it to be a chore to hang out with my teammates, and getting on a Zoom meeting is a chore. Yeah, I don't care if you're sitting around having a beer. Like it's a thing I don't look forward to doing. I mean, occasionally, like during COVID, like yes, because you're locked inside and you don't see anybody ever. But it's like there's so much more that happens in between the lines that you have to like counteract with all this overhead and rules versus like, okay, if we can all just be in the same room, then I don't know. Vibob put this really, really well, which was like, I think he put this in in their like job posting was like, you're gonna be in person because work should be fun, and in person is just more fun. Like it's not fun to get on a Zoom with somebody most of the time. I mean, none of these things are like black and white true, but it's just the spectrum is shifted significantly.
Are there other, I mean, going back to the AI UX kind of patterns, right? There's sort of chat, there's like this inbox pattern potentially. Are there other patterns that you think are like useful or important or will be important?
I mean, I think tab complete is really dope. I think tab complete is like the thing that Cursor figured out how to do really well is super impressive.
Where do you want tab complete to work that it doesn't work right now?
For like non-text things.
Non-text things, say more.
I mean, this was kind of like one of the, I think I was talking to Benny at Anthropic, and I was explaining like what Human Layer was back in like a year ago, and it was like, okay, cool, yeah, you have this agent out in the world, and then you know, when things are happening that need AI action, you get a Slack message or an email that's like, hey, we're going to do this thing. And you're like, yep, looks good. Yep, looks good. And it was like tab autocomplete for generic tool calls based on you have something running in the background, and it's like regularly like querying the state of the world and deciding if there's some action that needs to be taken. And then auto completing that action where it's like, hey, I'm going to send this email to this person, or hey, I'm going to update this record with this data, or whatever it is. And you just be like, yep, no, do it this way. And then like kind of going through there.
It makes me think of this term, which I think is kind of cursed because there's already too many terms. We should not invent more terms, but I will briefly say it just because
let's do it.
You've already heard the term, which is like organizations kind of having this like shared context layer, which is like exactly what it sounds like. You know, same way a human has a mental map of like, okay, we do this in Notion, we do this in GitHub, we do this over here. This is how all these tools like intersect and interact. Like presumably if you want an agent to be another colleague sitting alongside you and doing useful labor and work, it has to have a similar mental map of like how to get work done and where to go look for certain information and how to connect it all together.
Is that a prompt and tools? Is that
what is it in
specialized
practice?
Like automatic query system?
Yeah, it's probably prompt and tools, some agentic search thrown in for fun. So I'm not saying it's like a new set of of components per se. But I guess my question is like, do you have, talking to a few friends with this idea of almost like an AI native organization, and like it should run differently than like organizations have for the last like 100 years, because the level of access to information is like so much faster. And like, I guess, yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it gives a little bit like 15 competing standards, right? Or 14, what was it? It's like there's 14 and then someone's like, there's too many, we need to consolidate into one thing, and now you got another tool. If you win it, it's great. Yeah, I mean, as far as AI native org, like trying to build the systems like kind of on the side and passive, like hacking on stuff that allow us to basically just use a pile of like, we're doing Markdown with front matter for a while because front matter is nice because you can do a lot of like slicing and filtering deterministically without the model having to actually go read the whole file.
Interesting.
Or use like the search tool. So it's like a little tiny layer on top of the file system.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then we have some stuff in Airtable as well, which we're experimenting with and like syncing between the two.
So what's the Airtable use case? You mentioned this like CRM thing, right? Like Markdown is the source of truth. Like what is Airtable, like an ephemeral view for humans? Or
so we have I have a Markdown system, and then like we needed to like scale it to beyond me, and like basically adding a Claude command to sync it basically was like, okay, like commit, pull the latest, resolve the conflicts, push it back up, and just like kind of have a post session hook to just always like prompt it to do that basically. That kind of worked, but
so
also
is Airtable a view to the data, or is it also
it's a view to the data, but it's bidirectional. And then so we have the Git sync, and then we also have the Airtable sync, and it's like a bidirectional sync that is basically taking mostly stuff from the front matter, like the actual like structured data about a record, and then taking the body of it and just putting it in like a notes field basically. But it had like task management and stuff. It's very early. Like I don't know exactly how we're going to use it. We're not using it all day, but it allows me to work by mostly just talking to Claude, and I can just be like, hey, here's my like, I just had a call with this person, here's their email, like go use the CRM writer agent, which is like a sub agent that is like prompted to like, hey, if you're going to create a person or a company and like link them together, whether you're creating a person or you're creating a company, always go search the web. It's like basically like a poor man's like data enrichment system. Is like you can find most of this on the web, and like Claude can just do it. And it's like, I could go do like Clay and Zoom Info and like learn all this stuff, but again, it's just like, if we can just do it with Claude and Markdown, then that works great, and like that makes everything a lot simpler. And I'd rather have the like 80% or 90% and just all one tool versus like specialized tools for every single part of the GTM stack.
It makes me. So I've been hacking on a couple things on my own. One of them is like kind of to-do list management, and something about like it just being text as like kind of the actual storage layer. Markdown with matter, as you said. Like it's incredibly satisfying. And I think that you do need like probably the CRDT story, getting like multiple people to like write the file at the same time. But it's so flexible. Like there's no database migrations. Like you're not like migrating your Postgres database to add a new field. Like you just like add a thing to your front matter and it works.
It's a little NoSQL-y, but like, and you can also do linting and stuff. Like you can enforce schema in the front matter. You can just pre-commit hook.
To reference another tweet I said like last week that NoSQL is more AI friendly than SQL is. Actually, I strongly believe that. Yeah,
because AI doesn't care about the schema. It's going to read the thing and see all the stuff. And
schemas are for humans, not for AIs.
Yeah.
Or rigid schemas are, at least. Yeah.
So this is interesting. So I saw a tweet recently that was like, someone was talking about, do you remember the tune thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, actually, fundamentally, I agree with the direction of this in practice, but the tweet about it was so it was so clearly like part of the AI hype slop machine that I was just like, okay, cool. Like saying a correct or like somewhat correct thing in like a overhyped way like turns it into slop. But one of the things is like JSON was for humans and Tune is for language models. I'm like, okay, JSON, first of all, JSON is not for humans.
No, definitely
JSON is for programs.
Yes.
And I think front matter is for like schemas are for programs. It makes your code safer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know. It all comes from spreadsheets, right?
Yeah. But okay, going back to, you have like the front matter, which could be like the markdown, which is like your source of truth for your CRM.
Yeah.
And this is like a schema that the agent itself can evolve, right? Like the agent itself can decide, I need a new field. Great, I'll add it. Maybe I'll backfill. Maybe I won't backfill. It can just sort of decide how to evolve that schema. It's very flexible. And then you need the tools to be able to interact with that schema.
Yeah.
And the rules, right? And so there's sort of conceptually some level of like rules engine that like the AI kind of can develop its own rules about how to process, certain CRM information. Then you also as a human might give the agent sort of teach it over time, right? Like, if X then Y, if, A then B, you kind of give it more and more and more rules that it should
And
sort
it
of
can
use to
refine.
apply.
It's very easy to just be like, hey, we got too many tags. Like, go refine the tags to less than 20 tag categories.
Yes.
And
yes.
then it's like, cool, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these, and work
Right.
back and forth. And it's like, all right, cool, let me go launch 10 sub agents to go update all of those.
But then you need the views as well. So
You need a
right now
view
it sounds
into
like
the
you're using
data.
Airtable as this like complicated syncing view thing. But like, why shouldn't there just like why doesn't the agent itself just write some basic React app to like load that markdown into that local React app, and then flush it whenever you save it, or even in real time, be like flushing it basically. Like, why do you need a separate tool? I guess
I just use an editor. Like I have a hook set up that basically every week it goes and looks at everything on my calendar. I just like run it as part of my like Friday review process. Like go look at all my meetings, check who's not already in the CRM. If it's external and they're not in the CRM, it looks like, think about, does it look like a sales meeting or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Pull them in. And we have the same thing for investors, for customers, for like random users. We have like a folder of like, just like, they don't get an account, but they just have like a CRM contact. And it's just like, cool, go create a record for them. And then when I'm on a call with somebody, I open up my editor and I can pretty consistently just be like, okay, cool, here's who this person is. And it's so much faster than clicking around a web UI. Like it's just, the data's already there. It's
right. So you're using an IDE for this as your main interface.
Yes.
But then why does Airtable exist as a separate interface to the same data?
For other people on the team. We have like a head of operations that does a lot of like automations and
For
like
non-technical people.
sends out less technical people. Like he's
semi-technical people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's dangerous enough to run Claude code and ask questions, and like he wrote a skill the other day. Like this is not like non-tech. It's just like people who prefer to work in something like Airtable.
But presumably you could like the agent could build an Airtable clone.
Yeah.
And then you would avoid the syncing problem because like it's just some sort of like local sync story happening versus like there's not another like durable store of the same data.
Right.
It's just like this like HTML page almost that like knows how to load in a certain dir on your desktop.
But you still have to git pull. Like we store it all. It's like everyone's just pushing and pulling straight to master for that repo because it's like plain text documents. So it's like even without an Airtable like separate sync system, there's still like the repo. Where
Do you like
lives.
Git for this, or do you feel like it's overly burdensome for this use case?
Basically just use it as like S3 or like a like generic document store, right? Like, I mean, being able to merge conflicts is great, but again, the CRDT thing is the actual answer. You don't want to.
You would have no merge conflicts if you had CRDTs. In theory, or the CRDTs would handle the merge conflicts, but Git would not do the merge conflicts.
Yes. And it would happen at an atomic level, and you would see it as it was happening. Like it would only happen as you were editing, and you would see it as it was happening. I
guess in theory you have like the logs, just some of like replayability for this repo. Like, have you ever used that? Is that actually like an important feature of that tool?
No, it's literally just like cool before you start work pull.
Okay.
Like it's just we just built it into the prompts, and like it's annoying because it's a little slow, right?
Yeah,
you're doing inference
so.
on every call. You're doing the same poll. You're doing, but like the reason why we use Claude to do it instead of just writing a script is like because when there's merge conflicts, we have instructions in the prompts of like here's how to resolve merge conflicts, and like if it's really simple, just do it for these sorts of files. Just keep both always because it's like a journal. It's like a log of all the activity. It's like if it's going to get lots of conflicts, but it's just like just make sure that you keep the format correct.
Yeah.
Versus like some things is like, okay, this person put this update and this person put this. It's almost always just like additive merge. There's very rarely like for markdown files, this have to like actually merge logic like you get with code.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of people are reaching for Git, and I kind of like a suspicion that like that's not going to be a durable component. Clearly, a shared data store is incredibly important.
Yeah,
and maybe some level of versioning is also very important. But like all the heaviness of Git for something that's not code.
Okay, so what do you need then? So you need like local first speed, right?
Yep.
You need like a UI that's accessible to less technical people, at least for reading, probably for writing.
Yeah.
And then you need like a very, very like, I don't know, high efficiency, but context respectful interface for an agent to use. And ideally, like if you use the file system, then Claude Code can just go.
Yeah, I mean, if you take your MVC architecture, classic, Ruby on Rails, Django, right?
Sure.
Model, view, controllers. Like, what is that? The model is the schema of the data. It's the data itself.
But I don't want to have to think about the schema.
Like, no, I'm not saying you should think of the schema. I'm just like teeing up like another analogy I think like relates here. So like one is like there's the data. The second one is there's the views. How do you view that data? And then the third one is the logic, right? Like the controllers are ultimately like your business logic. Or, you know, take any application. What is it? And you sort of, again, it's like, you know, data, compute, and then some level of like pixels to like kind of render back to like the user, you know, the different things that they should be able to do. So I kind of want imagining this like
what is the
crazy
like MVC
flexible
analog in the AI world? I mean, I think
could it be like Markdown plus some sort of like rules, you know, AI rules engine? What is the AI native version of this? I guess
I think the business logic goes in your prompts, right? We have a lot of slash commands and sub agents that is just like this thing that does the calendar. That's slash command. It just runs like once a week in GitHub Actions, and it just like goes and pulls the things, and then like pushes updates to the Markdown, commits and pushes it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So Markdown is part of it. I think you need some kind of like orchestration scheduling, because you don't want to open this up and like tell it every time you want to do this. That's kind of outside the AI. I think you need like tooling. You need ways to like the tricky part of this is like, okay, how do I like figure out the Google OAuth stuff, get the scopes right, actually auth in, and it's like I'm not going to build a web app that has full like OAuth like cycle because it's just me using it and I'm just using CLI scripts. And so it's like, okay, like you need like a bare bones like auth management layer, and then you need a way like you need scripts, and you need a way to write scripts, and you need a way to like control. I mean, I was talking with Ian from Keycard about like MCP and like auth, and like basically everyone just has like API keys littered everywhere, and that's terrifying because even the most fine-grained auth, like something you get from Google or something, is really not. I mean, you have calendar.read and you have calendar.manage, and those are your options. And like I want to be able to do like, you can create events as long as they only have these people on the invite, and you're only allowed to delete events on my calendar if I'm the only, like those kind of rules just can't exist.
Like very unsolved for like kind of this AI world.
So and then I think you need a way to like write and execute code, which is like is part of like, because then you can do new things and you can generate new integrations, and so it's like secrets management, code execution, and like storing the executed code so you can like use it over and over again. And then you need like a data layer like Markdown, and then you obviously need some kind of agent harness.
Yep.
What else?
Views for humans.
Okay.
Like actual pixel views. Which again feels like it could be this.
That's been lowest priority for me, because I just look at everything in the editor.
Well, true. For your semi-technical users, you're talking about like doing things that feel complicated to me, which is building like an Airtable like syncing engine, for example, when like you could just have like a view for those users to the same data.
Yeah, that's probably a better approach.
By the way, the OAuth thing can not be that hard. Like over the weekend, I was building a desktop app, and I told Opus 4.5 to add OAuth for Google. And
did it do like the local like Flow credential server? Yeah.
Just one-shotted it.
Yeah. It's been a year ago that did not work. It was
like so easy. I was like, I thought that I was like insane. In my like to-do list, I was like, this seems kind of complicated and really hard. I don't know if this is going to work. And I was like, let's just try.
Yeah.
And I was actually incredibly
shocked. And it walked you through going and like creating the service account and downloading it. Like, had you ever done that before with like Google OAuth?
I had done it for web apps before, never for a desktop app, but it just did it, one-shotted it, which was crazy. And did walk me through like, okay, go to the Google dashboard console, get these, things.
So like, that's another thing is like models. Like I don't know if that's a good benchmark. Maybe that's one of my new benchmarks. It's like I was doing this a year ago with an agent. Do you know CodeBuff?
I've heard of it.
It was one of these coding CLIs that came out way before Claude Code. It was super fast, and it was only supported YOLO mode. There was no way to add permissions. They had no complex inter. It was just like, go. Just make it happen. It was very cool. But I was back and forth with, like, I think it was on, like, a combination of, like, Gemini Pro 2.0 and, like, Claude 3.6, whatever. And it was like 10 or 15 rounds to get it working. And when it finally got the OAuth and it could like list out my emails from Gmail, I was like literally typed in all caps. I don't know if you've ever done this to the model. It's like, holy, you did it.
Never have, but maybe I should, You mentioned a lot about using Claude Code for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Are there other agent harnesses that you're using? And if not, why not? Is like Claude Code just the best? Or how do you think about this?
Every time a new one comes out, I'll try it for like an hour.
Okay.
Like when the new cursor agent view, I'm interested more in like the UX and like the like how do you help humans keep all their work straight when their like, agents can kind of go off and do things headless, and you got to like maintain context and context switch a lot. So like I played with the cursor agent view, didn't get what but again I was like, now when I open any model I like talk to it like I would talk to Claude Code, and I was like, cool, I bet I could spend 2 weeks talking to this and not 10,000 hours but get my 100 hours and then be able to like actually know what it's good at and not, but I'd rather just keep focused on getting better and better at Claude Code and like refining that. So we play with codecs, I play with anti-gravity, like we mess with all these things.
Yeah. You clearly have a lot of thoughts and feel for the limitations of either the models or the agent harness that they are given. Claude Code is not open source, so you can't change it. So even if you find a way that it is weak, you have no ability, presumably, maybe you can yell at Anthropic DevRel on Twitter and make some progress there.
But people do that. I try not to do that. I have a lot of sympathy for Tariq and the team after I ended up going through like I opened an issue on the Anthropic repo because there was a Claude Code like breaking change that came out with 2.0.
Okay.
And I like filed an issue, and then I like pinged the one guy I knew at Anthropic at the time. I was like, hey, can you help me get this like escalated or whatever it is? And while I was waiting, I was like reading through the other like there's like 6,000 open issues on the Claude Code repo. Might be 4,000. I don't remember. It was like it was in the thousands.
It's intimidating.
And I read like 5 or 6 of them, and I think 5 out of the 6 that I read were people just being like, this thing did a bad job on a coding task I gave it. This thing sucks. And I'm like, man, you guys, I just think about like how messy the signal is for a company that big with that much adoption, and like I don't know how they make sense of it. And I'd like
hopefully AI, but
yeah, I would hope so.
But why not? I guess like going back to this like agent harness piece.
Yeah.
Like, do you think there will be an open source equivalent to Claude Code, which is just as good? Or like,
have you tried open code?
Exist? I asked this again on Twitter maybe a week or two ago, and resoundingly the comments were open code, open code, open code, open code.
Well, because open code is basically built by like you can reverse engineer the Claude Code harness. Have you ever hooked up a proxy to Claude Code and read all the traffic?
I know that you have. So, yeah.
You can do this. It's actually like I did it yesterday.
Okay.
Because I'm rebuilding a lot of our like plan generation workflows to try to be. We realize there's a lot of like. Don't let me go on this tangent for too long, but like
please start.
We realize there's a lot of in using the like research plan implement workflow, which we shared and thousands of people have adopted on GitHub and like have grabbed the prompts and put them in their own projects and are constantly being like, these are the best. This is state of the art for like using Claude Code to like solve hard problems in complex code bases. I realize as we work actually in the trenches with customers where we have like a couple champions and they're trying to roll it out to a team of 10, 50, 100 engineers, just like as an initial like test of like, hey, can we consolidate around one workflow for using AI in this company? And what we found is like when I use the prompts, they're very different from how most people use the prompts, and most people haven't used them enough to know what a good session versus a not so good session looks like. And part of it is like there's just like, oh, there's 6 instructions, and if you don't reinforce the instructions, like, okay, now we're on phase 3, like please also do 4, 5, and 6. Sometimes it'll just skip to the end or things like that. And I realize there's a lot of what I call like oral tradition. This is the same thing of like people who used to be really good prompters. They're just like, okay, cool. There's this thing where like, okay, you use this command and then you tell it what you want. And at the end you have to say like, remember, stay objective. We don't want you to tell me how to solve it. Just tell me how the code base works today.
Think step by step.
Yeah, like, exactly. Think step by step, all these kinds of things. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do now is like, how do we make the product and the tooling less require that oral tradition? How do we bake that into the opinions? And so it's funny is like, I was a 12-factor agents guy, right? I was like, full fat agents don't work. Just do context engineering. Treat LLM calls as just like an atomic step in your software, just like any other function.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, Claude Code like starts blowing up, and I'm like, actually, full fat agents are good to go. I'm the Claude Code guy now. Like, let's go. And now we're realizing like, oh, the thing that we want to do is actually break up this workflow into a bunch of like smaller. There's like a chat loop, and then you progress the conversation to another part of the chat loop. And so it's like, oh, we're back to context engineering and micro agents. If you know what the steps are, don't rely on the prompt for control flow. If you know what the workflow is, split the prompt up into smaller workflow steps. You can still iterate with the human in those steps, and then explicitly proceed to the next one, either by a model doing a specific structured output or by the user opting in, like, yes, I'm done with the questions phase. Now I want to go to the plan outline phase. Anyway, they're working on this, and it's really fun to like build an AI product from scratch with like really good evals from day one, because we know exactly what we're doing. And so like, but one of the things I built was like to be able to really diagnose this and understand things is from day one, the whole system has a logging proxy. Everything gets proxied through, and then we log every single request response pair. So whenever anything happens, we can say like, hey, go look in the logs. Here's the exact response from Anthropic, like reverse engineer Claude code from the outside, because it is closed source.
So why not switch to open code?
No comment.
Okay.
Maybe coming.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, open code's great because it was basically you proxied it, and it's just like a token for token replica of Claude code, because you can pass the same tools, you can pass the same tool definitions, you can use the same models, you can make the tools behave in the exact same way. And that's why open code is tied with Claude code on most of the benchmarks, because it's the same thing. It's just open source.
Right. Speaking about evals, popular topic in the press.
I got cooked by big eval, man.
Ooh, let's get into that. Big eval, it exists. I wrote my notes here. There's 1 million AI observability companies, many of them very well funded. And then there's also everybody saying, actually, LLM as judge doesn't really work very well. Like, actually. How do you do evals?
Oh man, LLM as judge. I was working with a customer a long time ago, and they were like, hey, we're going to do, I was like, I don't think LLM as judge works very well. Like, I don't think models are good at evaluating things. Like when we work, we try to keep the model objective as long as possible. And Kyle actually just put a post on like a good Claude MD. And part of it is like, never send an AI to do a linter's job. Like anything that can be done deterministically, like I don't trust a model to read code and tell me if it's good or not. Because these models are like optimize, tell us what we want to hear. And you could say, hey, like review this code and tell me if it's good or not. And it's like, yep, it's great. Like, hey, review this code and tell me if it's bad or not. It's like, yeah, it's trash. And it's like, it all depends on how you phrase the question.
Yeah, I asked the question again online, like, how do you get like valuable critique from one of the models? And it was like, you have to tell it, my friend sent me this, and I want to give them some valuable advice. Like, what should I tell them, basically? Otherwise the model will like think that
it doesn't want to hurt your feelings.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, the LLM judge thing is interesting. I mean, there's a lot to be said for like evaluating the like objective characteristics of it. It's like, we do in AI Tinkerers, we have an algorithm on the back end that is like, hey, cool, like we want to make sure that this event is mostly like by builders for builders. And so we don't ask like, hey, AI, rank this person on a scale of 0 to 1,000 on how technical they are. It's like, no, extract like 50 data points, and then we have like an algorithm that turns that into a 1 to 1,000 score. It's like, have they had a software engineering job in the last 2 years? Have they pushed anything to GitHub? Does their GitHub stuff have AI stuff in it? It's all these like, there's 50 questions. I actually don't know how it works exactly, but I know I have reverse engineered it by the number of bugs I've reported in it. But it's getting really good now. So as far as observability goes, I don't know.
You just said we have very good evals. What are your evals?
They are snapshot based.
What does that mean?
We did an episode about evals with Vibob, and there's a bunch of different categories, and like we don't have most of these.
We'll link to it in the show notes.
It's really fun. Yeah. It's from like 4 months ago, and like I haven't seen anything. Like Vibob led the episode, so I'm happy to talk about how great it is. I haven't seen anything of like higher signal and like value density as far as like how to do good evals since then. And to be fair, like I don't get that excited about evals. So if I looked harder, I would find some really good stuff. But essentially, we have this prompt workflow, and it's split into stages. And so we have a test that like runs it end to end for a question. It takes kind of like a long, because like Claude code, running sub agents, searching files, doing all this stuff. And then we output the snapshot. Basically, here's what the final output was. And then we can also break down and do evals on each stage. Kind of like unit test versus integration test kind of thing. But even the unit test is around kind of a large part of the workflow. And then we just store the output. And then when you run it, you create a set of new snapshots. And then you can diff the snapshots in the CLI. We'll probably build a web UI. It's very easy to vibe code a web UI for these things.
Totally.
And then and then you can accept the new snapshots. It's like, okay, that change is better, and I like that. Like, oh, I made a change and it's changed significantly. Then, but it's basically the ability to like, because evals for me are, I think of them the way like software engineers like think about unit tests or integration tests or end-to-end tests. It's like a way to prevent regressions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you can have the very low-level unit testy evals, which is like, okay, this comes out and I make a bunch of deterministic assertions about the output. Really nice for like structured output problems and like parsing unstructured data into like structured objects. You can make a lot of assumptions. You can make a lot of assertions there. But we're not there yet. So it's like, I don't know. The advice that I like the most is like anything, like the first layer is vibes. Vibes is very high leverage, especially if you don't know what you're building yet and you don't know what you want it to look like. I think there was a guy who talked at AI Engineer World's Fair, Ben Stein. He talked about like how does product management change in a world where like the capabilities of what you're building are emergent. Like you don't actually even know what it's capable of until you build it and like try it on a bunch of stuff. And so his flow is like, the BDD thing never really worked anyways. The like, okay, like let me define the behaviors that I want and then work backwards from that. And then that's what we evaluate.
Right.
And like building the evals first for an AI tool feels, his take is like, you're going to constrain what you're actually building versus like build the thing, have a product manager play with it for a couple days, and then have them like point out, okay, these are the behaviors we really like. Here's the bugs, but like then you back into, okay, here's what we're going to eval against going forward.
Continuing that thought, but also changing gears a little bit. The topic of like continual learning has been in the news extensively also recently through like 18 of Dwarkesh's podcast now basically, but also most notably the most recent one with Ilya.
Summarize it for me, because I've been like kind of following, but like what's your understanding? You've clearly consumed more of this than I have.
It just seems like there's an increasing awareness that like what we really want is the ability for these AI systems to be able to get better through experience.
Okay.
So the AI system goes out, we tell it to do a job, it does the job, it observes what it does well or what it does not do well. It also gets feedback from humans about what it's doing well or what it's not doing well. And then it's able to sort of update its intuition about how to do that thing and then get better over time. This is how humans operate, right? Like you could not write a manual that was detailed enough to onboard an engineer onto your team and one-shot it. In practice, you're going to be like sitting next to that person and like giving them micro feedback for months to like get them to be like 100%, autonomous basically.
But you're also not writing down all that feedback. You expect them to write down the feedback either internally or on paper.
No, exactly. And so the tacit knowledge transfer is a big problem broadly, right? Even in human systems. But I guess it feels like that is like what we all want these AI systems to be able to do, because like again, you use the thing and you notice where it makes mistakes. And then you need to now try to either work around those mistakes and or like try to teach it itself to avoid those mistakes. And then ideally, again, there's like some aspect where like it can just do that in the weights, because that's like, presumably more expressive than like adjusting the prompt or adjusting like the RAG system it has access to or whatever.
Or like adding directives to the end of your Claude MD, right? Like Claude has this memory. You do like a hash thing and then it's like, cool, I'm going to memorize that instruction.
Right.
But you want it to update its own stuff, right?
So there's like some level of like maybe like offline like compaction where like the model. So the current version, I think I've seen people now increasingly trying to do, I'm not sure how successful it is like, every night the model itself goes back through everything it did that day, and then it like reflects on like, like across these like 100 traces, like what could I do better, and then like tries to like bake that into its knowledge for the next day, or some level of back testing to see if that works for the previous week. Or you can kind of imagine this sort of offline compaction system that obviously can also be a training loop as well, so there could be like continuous RL or whatever on top of the model. But like I guess thoughts about continual learning broadly.
I mean, it sounds like the naive solution is like build a good memory, and not naive in the sense like it's good. Building a good memory system is really freaking hard.
Why is it so hard?
I think it's hard to do. I think it's almost impossible to do generically right now. I think like you can build really low level building blocks. I think building a like thick horizontal memory layer is just like models are changing too much, the use cases are changing too much, the engineering techniques are changing too much. I know people who are building for a very specific use case. Like my buddy Brian is at an applied AI lab. They built like a tutor. And so this AI has, they implemented from scratch, because this is the only thing that gave them enough control, was like they call it like decaying resolution memory. And so every time the agent turns on, it's like, cool, here's what's happened today.
Yeah.
Here's like daily summaries for the last 14 days. Here's weekly summaries for the like 3 weeks before that. And then here's monthly summaries for the last 2. Like, it's not like conceptually hard.
It's like an educational use case, like teaching somebody how to,
It does like tutoring for like grade school and high school students, basically. And so it like receives emails from parents, it receives emails from students, it receives like a daily wake up to just see like, hey, is there anything to do today? Here's your rules and here's your memory and stuff like this.
Yep.
And but that's a very specific implication for a very specific use case. And I think if they had tried to generalize it, they would not have solved their own problem, and they would not have solved anybody else's problem.
I guess not that. I mean, the general case is obviously very interesting because you can then theoretically point this agent at anything and it sort of just will get better naturally. So that's interesting from that perspective. But like, I think for now, for people who are builders, the ability to build agent memory successfully for my use case as sort of a proxy to continual learning. It sounds like you're seeing some people like be successful at that, but it sounds like it's like not easy still.
And it's less about behavior, right? It's more about like factual recall of like, what are the things I need to know to do my job? And like the actual continual learning is like, because they need really good performance, they're not willing to let the agent update its own memories. They're not willing to let the agent like update its own instructions. Like, the memory layer is the single like system of continuity through the whole thing. I think I haven't talked. I talked to him about it for an hour.
Yeah.
But
the factual stuff feels doable today, right? Like, remember this user likes potatoes. Like that they don't like lettuce. Like, I don't know, the factual stuff feels like fairly doable. Like the thematic stuff, like it feels like much harder.
But like the instructions and the rules, like the how to be, not the like what is true.
Right. Yes. Have you seen anybody attempt that?
I mean, I see a lot of people like try to attempt it in their CloudMD files, and it doesn't go very well.
But why is that? Is it like the model, the harness, or all the above?
I mean, there's some finding, and like I think the study's like 6 months old at this point, so there's no Gemini 3 or anything in there. But it's like frontier models can follow about 100 to 200 instructions, or 150 to 200 instructions. And if you give them more than that, you basically like really start to lose out on, you spread the attention across all the instructions. The model's got to try to decide which ones are relevant, and sometimes it won't.
This is like context rot for tools, basically.
For instructions. Yeah, exactly. It's like you tell it too many ways to do things, it just like won't work. And so people just like spam with like, always do this, never do this, always do this. And like you put the all caps thing, that's going to put more attention there. That's going to take away attention from everything else. Yeah. And so you have this like almost like instruction severity inflation, where everybody who wants to add a new instruction wants it to be followed. So they put theirs in all caps, and then the other ones get followed last, and then everyone is coming in, and suddenly your entire like memory, like instruction system, your whole system prompt is just like everything's in all caps, and you're actually like detuning it from everything else in the conversation.
Why is like, I guess, agentic search not a solution to that problem? Like Anthropic just launched their like tool search thing, for example. Like it seems like rules search in this context would also be like potentially very effective.
Oh, I haven't seen anybody implement that.
Oh, okay.
Of like, hey, I'm doing this. Like, how should I perform it? And then you like rag against it or something.
All right. Well, I know what we're hacking on now.
Yeah, rules bench.
All right, great.
I'm sure there's a lot of instruction following benchmarks. I don't know if anyone's evaluating anything like that. If you're on the YouTube, ping us on Twitter and tell us, because I would be interested in hearing more about that.
Yep. All right. We just hit an hour.
Damn, really?
That was an hour.
Okay.
We could talk all day.
It was fun.
But why don't we call it there and save the good stuff for next time?
Sounds great. Can't wait. Good stuff, dude.
Peace.
Cheers.
See ya.